distinguished guests in the dais, and the friends in the audience. The subject of today, the theme of the summit is transforming India into a global manufacturing hub. Well, when you talk about this subject, naturally, that comes into mind is who is the manufacturing hub in the world today? Naturally, the answer is China. Just going back, step backwards. In 17th century, China and India had almost similar contribution to the world economy, each contributing about 25%. And after industrialization, the economies of both countries diminished. And about up to 1980, still, though on the diminished level, the economies were almost equal, China's and India's. But in 1980, China took off, India started crawling, probably stayed wherever they were. So that's the story of the manufacturing hub that China has become. So naturally, there is a scope for us to also emulate China as far as transforming ourselves into manufacturing hub. But how do we achieve that? And let's get to, today China has become number 2 countries, and we were 5. And let's see, I'm very optimistic in this area. So let's look at where we are, and we are at about $200 billion. And as Ms. Praveen said, McKinsey have forecast our economy to grow to about it's $850 billion, and not rather chemical sector is going to grow to about $850 billion by 2040. At present, 30% of chemicals in India is contributed by imports, out of the consumption. And if you see this table, the manufacturing sector of India is about 520 billion, and contribution of chemical sector is about 30%. As against this, the Chinese manufacturing sector size is 9 times. And so there's a large gap between them. And when it comes to the imports that I mentioned, 30% of our consumption is met by imports, and many of these imports are something like, the volume of imports is such that they in fact exceed the large size world scale capacities of individual plants. So we import a lot of methanol, acetic acid, we import styrene and polycarbonate, and even PVC. So some of these, the building blocks that we are importing, if we can install, or if we can invest on these plants, there is definitely an advantage. Actually, it's a step towards us becoming a manufacturing hub, but that's not the end of it. There are many, many areas where we have scope and we have to work on. But what we have in in manufacturing, the transformation in this, we have a role to play. The chemical industry chemical sector has a role to play. The government has a role to play. The downstream and the upstream of chemical sector have to have a role to play. And fortunately for us, the government has come up with some schemes, the PLI schemes in certain areas like textiles, the green hydrogen side, and a few other areas. And so naturally, government is trying to do something playing its role, but the industry has to play a bigger role. And as Mr. Handa said, the downstream side, they are working on, like they are into the anode active materials for the battery chemicals, and here there are some players such as Reliance are getting into battery manufacturing business, and naturally on the downstream side of the batteries also, the user side, the automobiles, or we are going to make like for stationary application and mobility applications. So naturally, the use of the batteries on the downstream side is also going to be grown if we were to take advantage of that arrangement. So it's coming to this because in the previous slide you must have seen, apart from China now being isolated by the West to some extent, but we have to actually watch out for two other countries, which is Vietnam and Mexico. And if you see, both countries are leapfrogging, and two countries, pretty small, but whatever they're going to produce is going to be export-oriented. And it's for the export market and not so much in consumption. Whereas India's economy is primarily based on consumption, less on export. But fortunately, the Indian government's motive today is to make in India, make for the world. So if we were to follow that, we certainly would have tremendous scope for us to grow in that area and take advantage of these schemes and these incentives that are being provided by the government. And I feel the chemical sector should take advantage of fully. So as I mentioned, what we are good at. In India, we are good at building up big plants. We are pretty much good at maintaining safety in our operating plants. Our records are pretty good. Our environment compliance is astonishing. And the customer service minded, the people are. And we typically, my experience is whatever investments we have done, as compared to the world standards, we have been extremely competitive in investing on our chemical plants. And the capital cost-wise, probably it is about 20 to 30% cheaper, dollar terms. So these are the advantages we have. And in India, we have other advantages, like we have English language, and then we have good legal system, because particularly the foreign investors are interested in these two factors, and the IP protection is fairly well managed, and people have confidence. And then we have a large pool of talent coming out of the universities every year, so fairly easily available talent. But the drawback of that is the people who are coming out of the universities are not readily employable. So you have to go through and spend they invest on their training for them to be made employable in the chemical sector. And the other challenge, I think one of my predecessors said, is how do we attract the talent to the chemical sector, or manufacturing sector rather, and because most of these people are attracted by the financial sector, the banking sector, and all of that. So that's a challenge naturally. But we do have also the innovation mindset. As an example, if you see that today in India, nano urea has been in use for some time now. 45 ml of nano urea is equivalent to about 45 kilograms of normal urea. So as such, those innovative products coming into the market is a good sign. Another good sign is, it is there, so we have, if you see, India has 5,300 companies listed in BSE, and 2,200 in National Stock Exchange, as compared to 2,800 companies registered in New York Stock Exchange and 3,300 in NASDAQ. So what a difference. So that itself shows the entrepreneurship available in the country. And we chemical sector has adopted to the changing environment very well, I would say. And with that, the present challenge that we have is, like as I've been repeating, China is one major manufacturing hub to look at, but at the same time, so we have to look at these Mexico and Vietnam following us. So let me give an example of importance of innovation and how to take advantage of the innovation that is available, or some product or some good invention. Example is, Albert Einstein, in fact, invented the idea of photovoltaic electricity, solar photovoltaic electricity. But he is known for theory of relativity. But he did not get his Nobel Prize for that. He actually got Nobel Prize for his idea of the photovoltaic electricity. But it was invented in US. Who took advantage of that? Japan came up initially with solar calculators and solar watches, etc., etc. But the people who really take full advantage of this is Chinese. So they commercialized it in a large scale, and today they are producing over 53% of the global solar PV capacity. So this is an example which we should actually look at in front of us, and if there is an opportunity of a new innovation, we should in fact grab and really emulate what China has done in that area. But if you look at that, and 217 gigawatt of solar power China is producing, which is almost about 53% of the solar capacity in the world. And because of their large manufacturing capacity today, over the past 10 years, the cost of the photovoltaic electricity has reduced there by about 80%. And then, the future global manufacturing that we are talking about. Well, in India today, we look at what are the opportunities, and what we should be doing is, in our manufacturing, I think some of the new things which we need to look at is artificial intelligence. We need to incorporate this in our manufacturing. We should also look at the sustainability aspect of it. There are products which are sustainable. We are looking at the hydrogen economy, and the products emanating from the building block of green hydrogen. When I say green hydrogen, is hydrogen produced purely by using green power, that is solar power or wind power or alternative power. And there is today definitely a pressure on maintaining the emission levels, and also maintaining the efficiency in manufacturing. And all of these factors have to be taken into account if you have to be competitive in the international marketplace. And there is being also, we should be doing, because internationally big players are developing the catalysts, new catalysts, and they have these high throughput catalyst screening systems. And these are some of the new areas that they are working on, and we should in fact also be looking at these opportunities. We should also look at how do we leapfrog in chemical sector. Just giving an example of how we did in telephony. And we started off, and so we have now become such a large player in the world, either in communication or data handling capacity. And chemical sector has to actually do something special, as we have seen in mobile phone and telecommunication system. Today, I think about 100 million tons of products are produced globally by the electrochemical process. We believe that there is going to be definitely a scope for the chemicals produced through that process, and in that direction, naturally, hydrogen economy is going to play a big role. So, if you make green hydrogen, and you can have the derivatives such as green methanol, green ammonia, green urea, and all of those derivatives. And there is also scope for recycling of the polymers and the plastics. And there are processes being developed. It's pretty nascent in its stage. But these are the areas, because we are going to be a big player in polymer production and polymer capacity, but it is also going to be a big problem if we do not manage or handle the used polymers. So there is a huge scope in that area as well. With that, I only stop with a hope of optimism for the chemical industry, as Praveen and McKinsey have forecast. 850 billion to 1 trillion by 2040 is a big number, and hopefully we will be able to achieve. Thank you.